Why is alcohol not banned? On January 16, 1920, the United States did something that seems almost unthinkable today. They didn't just regulate a substance, they attempted to delete an entire culture. At the stroke of midnight, the 18th Amendment went into effect and the noble experiment began. People didn't spend that final night crying, they spent it drinking. In cities like New York and Chicago, people held mock funerals for John Barleycorn, the personification of alcohol. They hauled caskets through the streets, filled with the last legal bottles of whiskey and gin. There was a sense of finality. The Dries, the people who pushed for the ban, promised that once alcohol was gone, prisons would be emptied, families would be healed, and the world would enter a golden age of morality. But as the sun rose on January 17th, the world didn't get better. It got much, much darker. The Dry leaders had made one fatal assumption. They thought that if you made alcohol illegal, people would stop wanting it. They were wrong. Within weeks, the demand didn't vanish. It just shifted into the shadows. Suddenly, every basement in America became a potential distillery. Speakeasies popped up behind unmarked doors. But the most dangerous change wasn't the drinking itself. It was who was providing the drink. Because the government had walked away from the industry, they handed the keys to the most violent men in America. Men like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano didn't just build businesses. They built empires of blood. The ban on alcohol created the modern American mafia. It turned small-time thugs into billionaires with private armies. The noble experiment was effectively funding the very people who were tearing society apart. As the years went on, the government became frustrated. People were still drinking bathtub gin, and the authorities wanted to stop them. So, the U.S. government did something that sounds like a dark conspiracy theory, but it's actually a matter of public record. They ordered companies that manufactured industrial alcohol, used for fuel and cleaning, to add deadly chemicals to their products, substances like kerosene and methyl alcohol. They knew bootleggers were stealing this industrial alcohol and redistilling it to sell as booze. The government's logic was simple. If they know it's poison, they won't drink it. They were wrong again. Bootleggers sold it anyway. By the time Prohibition ended, it's estimated that over 10,000 people had died from drinking government-tainted alcohol. The moral ban had turned into a state-sponsored poisoning. By 1929, the mood in America had shifted from moral outrage to pure desperation. The stock market crashed, and the Great Depression began. Suddenly, the government had a massive problem. Before Prohibition, taxes on alcohol accounted for nearly 40% of the entire federal revenue. When they banned alcohol, that money vanished. Now, with the country in an economic death spiral, the government was broke. They were spending millions of dollars trying to enforce a law that everyone was breaking, while losing billions in potential tax revenue. The answer to why is alcohol not banned is surprisingly simple. The government literally cannot afford to ban it. In 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified, ending Prohibition. It wasn't because the government suddenly decided drinking was good for you. It was because they realized that a regulated, taxed poison is better for the state's survival than an unregulated, untaxed one. Today, we live in the legacy of that mistake. We know alcohol causes more deaths annually than almost all other drugs combined. It's linked to violent crime, car accidents, and massive health crises. But if we banned it tomorrow, the same thing would happen. The cartels would take over. The tax revenue, now used for schools, roads, and the very healthcare needed to treat alcoholics, would disappear. We are locked into a social contract with a substance that we know is harmful because the alternative, giving that power to the underworld, is far more terrifying. The story of Prohibition is a story of human nature. You can change the law, but you cannot change the want. When the government tried to play God with American morality, they ended up creating the very devils they were trying to exorcise. Alcohol isn't legal because it's safe. It's legal because the world is a much scarier place when it's hidden. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the noble experiment, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories from the strange and dark side of history.